Welcome back to Andersen Acres. Somebody asked if I could do a video on how to shape breads. So that is what we're going to do today. We're just going to show you 4 different methods for shaping a bread. So I'm actually going to use these little pans because I'm not going to do 4 giant loaves showing you different ways. But it's exactly the same for a larger loaf. You do the exact same thing. So we're just going to quickly spray our little ones. I'm just using a canola oil spray. I don't need very much because they're silicone. They don't stick. If you're using pans that are glass or aluminum, you're going to need to grease them more than I do because I'm using silicone. Anyway, that's not the point of the video. So we're going to do 4 little loaves. So because I'm doing 4, I'm just going to cut my dough into 4 here. Okay. Just going to cut our dough into 4 and make 4 little balls just because it gets them out of my way. And then I'll show you the basic, most common method of shaping a loaf. And then I will go from there. There are 4 methods that I use, and if you've watched my videos, you've probably seen most of them. Okay. First one, make sure you squeeze all your air bubbles out. So if you see an air bubble, give that a squeeze. You want to pop those air bubbles. You want those out of there. So you take your dough for your first shape, and it's really, really easy. They're not very difficult. You can shape however you want. So you just kind of give it a press, and then you just kind of shape it. It's like, this is the Mickey Mouse way. It's easy, there's nothing wrong with it. You get your pan, make sure that you're about the same length, and you just find your seam, put it seam side down. That's it. That's the first one. Okay? That is the first one. The second method that we're going to use is not really at all difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to press. Just press till you're about the same width as your bread pan. If you hear something in the background, it's the cat. Sorry. One of the cats. So you press it out kind of flat, fold them up, and pinch. You do this a lot with French bread. Okay? Then you press it down again. Sorry, there was some parsley on my... Press it down again and fold it up. So what you're doing is you're creating air pockets. So we're going to do it one more time. There's a little parsley on my mat. Press it down. And then fold the ends in, because this is the third time. And then fold it up. So basically what we've done is we've trapped some air in there. You do that a lot with French breads or breads that you want to have quite airy. So you end up with a nice, neat, tight little guy like that. He goes in the pan. Give him a squish. 2. Okay. This one. So our third method, you need to measure your pan. So you have to have kind of your pan sitting there. You stretch it sideways till it's about the width of that pan, maybe a little bit wider. And this one, if you wanted a really buttery bread loaf, you could use this method and add butter to it. We're not going to do that. We're just showing you the differences. So then you just press that out. Kind of get it fairly thin. So you stretch it up, only a little bit wider than your pan, remember. So you do this. This is a good method for shaping if you want to do a cinnamon loaf. So you would put your butter in here and your cinnamon sugar. But you can also just use plain white. So you just kind of give that a press. You could do a pesto roll. I do pesto rolls this way. You put your pesto in here, roll it on up, kind of like a cinnamon bun. But you can also just do this. This gets you kind of flaky layers. If you want them really flaky, you can just smear a little bit of butter on here, and then your dough has a bunch of layers. So then we're just going to tight roll. Very, very tight roll. Tight, 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 tight. Pinch your seam. Pinch your seam really well. Then you want to pinch your ends. Pinch them really well. Pinch your seam. Pinch your ends shut. Pinch that seam really well or it'll rise funny. It's the only thing I don't like about this one is if you don't pinch this seam properly, it'll pop and then your loaf will look funny. So you want to make sure that seam is well pinched and on the bottom. So you notice it's still a little bit longer. That's okay. We fluff and press. You just kind of squish it in there. See? It'll look a little bit like a worm for a little while, but that's okay. It'll rise too. So you try to just get it to lay as straight and flat as you can. That's 3. Now we're going to take our 4th. This one, you really want to make, you want it to be longer than this by about double. Okay? So yes, slapping it does work. I know that looks funny, but it's a good way to relax the dough. You don't whack the heck out of it, but yes, if you take a dough that's kind of contracting, just kind of, and that helps relax the gluten in it so you can spread your dough a little bit easier. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to stretch this into a rectangle. Now you want to be about double the size of your pan because you're going to be folding this into a packet. So be about as even as you can. It doesn't really matter that much because the edges are getting folded in. So it doesn't really matter if it's too thin. It all gets folded to the same place. Okay, so double check that you are twice the length. And if you're not, go a little bit further out on the one side. Okay? A little bit further out on the top. There. Nice and flat. Now we're not going to roll this one. What we're going to do is you also want to be double the width at least, by the way. So you want to be bigger than your pan by quite a lot. So we're just going to take our bottom edge, fold it to the middle. Okay? Boop, 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 boop. Press that down. Press that down. Take this edge, fold it also to the middle. Overlap your seam just a little bit. Press that seam down. Now you're going to take this, fold that to the middle. And then you're going to fold this one to the middle, again, overlapping just by a little bit. So we're going to pinch that seam, pinch the side seam. This is not my favorite shaping method because I find it annoying with all the pinching. I'm more likely just to roll and go, but you can shape them any way you like. So you pinch all your seams. You can give your seams a little roll just to try to even them out. So that's what you do is you pinch your seam, put that seam down, and then just kind of give your dough a little bit of a roll just to help that seam disappear. And if you can still see it, you again just pinch it. There we go. So now you have a little bit of a packet. You take your packet and you put it in there. Now that's 4. So what we have here, and I've arranged them on the pan so we'll be able to tell which one's which. That's the first method. That's just squishing it and putting it in the pan. This one is what we do with a French or that type of dough where you want a little more air in it. This is rolled and this one is packet. So we will come back when they have risen and we'll see if we can see any differences. And then we'll come back again after they're baked and again, see if we can see the difference. All right, so our 4 different types of shaping have risen up, our little loaves. Remember, this one is the first one we did. This one is just your basic squish it, roll it a little bit, stick it in a pan. This one, we had spread out, pull the edges together, pinch them down, and then do that a couple of times. So we would press down on the dough, pull the edges in, crimp them together, press down, and crimp again. This one was rolled out and then rolled up. So ignore this little bit here because that's where I screwed up. It was a little bit too long and I kind of waved it in there. But you will notice the difference on this one is sometimes the ends can bubble up a little bit because of that rolling. And then this one was just when we made a packet. We just made a packet. So we're going to bake them and then we'll come and see what they look like and remove them from the pans and you can see if there's a lot of difference. I promise there really won't be. All right, so here we have it. Breads 1, 2, 3, and 4. The first one is just your basic You know, squish it, roll it out, roll it a little bit, stick it in a pan. The second one is our squish it, fold the edges together, squish it again, fold the edges together. The third one is rolled up. You flatten it out and you roll the whole thing up. This one is the packet that we made, where we folded all four sides in to each other. So you can see there are a few differences. This one is the one I usually do. I usually just squish and roll. It's just easier. You just want to make sure you get all the air bubbles out so you don't end up with an air pocket. This one I use for French bread or other breads where I want to trap a little bit of air. Otherwise, I don't really get that nitpicky. You'll see this one did what sometimes happens when you roll dough. You can get bubble on either end just from the rolling and the pinching. That's not that big a deal, but I tend to reserve this for when I'm doing a filling or when I'm just bored with having shaped it the way I have. And then you have this one, which was a little packet where we folded all four sides in to meet each other. That one turned out just fine as well. Honestly, I typically do this. It's so much easier, but you can see there's not that much difference. This one, you will see a difference just because of the way it's rolled. So save that one for when you have a filling in your bread. But otherwise, shape it how you want. There's really no right or wrong way to shaping your bread. However works for you. Some people get almost religious about how they shape their bread. It's not that big a deal. You can shape your bread any way you like and they'll always turn out. So do it how you want. They rise just fine. Like this one is the easiest one and it's fine. It's totally fine. Anyway, that's about it for that little tutorial on how to shape a bread loaf. Join us tomorrow when we do something else. I don't know. We might make a bread. I might talk about how to store breads long term. Either way, we'll see you tomorrow.